One more time. Thank you for tuning in, family. Miss Courtney, I see you. Thank you for tuning in. I saw you pop up on the screen. So tonight, we have a special guest. We have Judge Sheila Calloway. She is the Davidson County Court Judge. So she's coming on. Yeah. Okay, Miss Jada. How you doing? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, Miss Jada, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, John, for tuning in. So we're going to have Judge Sheila Calloway. She'll be pulling up in a second. She just texted us, so she's on her way. So she'll be pulling in. So we're going to go ahead and start the show. Hey, Rick, thanks for tuning in, Rick. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank y'all. We started with the last show. We had Dr. Harold Love. He's the Tennessee State Representative. He was on last time with us on the last show. That was Wednesday. And my daughter was on the previous, he was on last Monday. My daughter was on Wednesday. So if you guys want to see the last show with Dr. Harold Love and then with my daughter, it was the Next Generation Conversations. Hey, Gooch, what's going on, big fella? And we had a really good show. We were really enjoying that. We had a blast on that one. We appreciate the support coming in from that. So we'll open up the phone lines a little bit later. So at the top of the screen on the bottom, you guys that's tuning in live, you should see that. This is her. She's coming in right now. But when we open up the phone lines, you can reach us at 615. The number is 227-1470. So we want to do our disclaimer. Anything that we say, any promotions, anything that is said is not a reflection on WVOL 1470. It is solely on me, and they have nothing to do with any comments or anything represented by the Clipperdome Chronicles. So the judge is coming in. We thanking everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you so much. So we're going to let her come in and get settled and give us a second, and then we'll be getting with you guys. Hold on one second. Okay, yeah, so while she's coming to get settled in, when we had that last show, you can go see all of the shows on my Facebook page. It's public. If they're not a friend, they can tune in, or they can go to Clipperdome Chronicles on YouTube. That's YouTube. We have 41 videos on the YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles page. We have our men's banquets for the ladies, letting them know that we do have the men representing. We'll start our men and women's forums coming up real soon. We have different excerpts that we've done our research on, and you can tune into those, and you can see those videos and kind of get an idea of what we do. So if you do want to attend the forum before you get there, you can see those videos, and it'll tell you what we do and kind of give you a feel. You can touch, taste, and feel what we do and how we do it. So the judge will be here in 1 second. So we're going to have a good show. Y'all, come on in and have a seat right here. Here she go. Come on in. Just so you position yourself where they can see you.
Okay, all right, I can do that.
Okay, so she's settling in, good people. We thank y'all for tuning in. We're going to let her get settled, and we're going to get this show started. So I'm a little excited, just a little bit, y'all. Just not a lot, just a little bit. So I'm not smiling. How you doing, Judge?
I'm wonderful, Dennis. How are you today?
I'm
Mr.
doing
Graham,
something. I just don't know what I'm doing.
Do I refer to you as Mr. Graham?
However you like to address me. We're just happy that you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
There you go.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you for coming, and I really appreciate that. How was the day?
The day has been great. It was Veterans Day, so I want to give a shout out
there you go.
to all of those who have given service.
That's right.
To us as Americans to protect our rights and our freedoms.
That's right.
From sea to sea, shore to shore, from all places, all manner of service. We just thank you for your service. Because of that, I had the opportunity to kind of relax today and take the day off.
Beautiful.
I was off today.
Yes, you were. And so I thank you because I reached back out to you because I have to respect the time because you do serve, because you do give so much. We have to let you know that we appreciate you. So if you had to reschedule it, it wouldn't have been a problem at all because you know how I feel about service and what you do for the community. So that's huge.
Not a problem.
So yeah, no doubt. And I want to say, on behalf of the Clipperdome Chronicles, we want to thank all of the men and women who have served and who are in service. And we thank you and happy Veterans Day to you all. Okay, so we want to get started. We want to let the people, we want to reintroduce you to some.
Okay.
Introduce you to some and reintroduce you to others. So, where did you grow up?
So I am Sheila Calloway.
Yes.
I originally grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. My mother and father still live there today. They've been married for 53 years
All right.
now.
All right.
I think they'll be celebrating 53 years in December of marriage. They are still in Louisville. I have one older sister who absolutely I love. We're a super close family. My sister lives in Minnesota now, and she's the provost at the St. Catherine's University, and so she's doing some big things in her
Okay.
line of work as well. She started off in psychology and became a professor and then a dean of a school, and now she's made it up to the provost, and so
All right.
super proud of her. And in psychology, she does a lot of psychoanalyzing her family.
Is she pretty accurate?
Oh, she's pretty
Oh,
accurate.
there
in
you
most
go.
cases.
We need her on the show.
Absolutely.
We need to get, yes, no doubt.
But
Absolutely.
my parents taught me a lot about just how to care and love for one another, how to support one another through the good times and the bad, through the ups and the downs. They taught us early on how to take care of others, and that it's not just about us and our
That's
family,
right.
but it's about others.
That's right.
And so from as early as I can remember, we've always been like a family that took in people who needed help. Whether it was, a couple of weeks for somebody to get on their feet, we would bring them in. I had two high school friends at different times that one of them, her family was moving to a state far away, and she wanted to finish her last year in high school with in the same area in the same school and not have to move. And so my parents took her in for a year and just cared for her like she was their daughter.
Okay, wait, how many of you all is it?
So there were two, me and my sister.
Right, just you and your sister.
Just me and my
Okay.
sister.
All right.
And then we would have various folks that come
Rotate
that
through the
rotate
family. Okay, I understand.
that we call family.
I understand.
That we took care of. And
Understand.
so, they taught me early on that it's about work ethic, that it's about caring for others and taking care of others, and not just you, but your entire community. My mother kept me and my sister busy all the time. We were always in some type of activity, and I think she knew that idle minds leave for the devil's workshop, and that she put us in as many programs as possible that we would never get bored, never have anything not to do, and never find things to get into that weren't appropriate. And so when people talk about how I stay busy now and do this and do that, I learned it from my mother.
Okay. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
So she did that for me, or to me, early on in life. And so I ended up coming here to Nashville, Tennessee back in 1987 when I
Okay.
graduated from high school
Okay.
and came here to go to school at Vanderbilt University.
Okay.
And so I fell in love with Vanderbilt first and stayed at Vanderbilt for both my undergraduate degree as well as my law school degree. And then fell in love with Nashville, Tennessee as a whole, and
I
said,
understand.
if anything, I want to stay here and raise my family, do my law work and everything here in Nashville, Tennessee. So that's me in a nutshell.
And you took several questions from me, but because you're so articulate and insightful, that's good. That's a good deal. All right, so now we know who you are. So let's go a little extension of the family. I know that you are married and you have a family. Let's go a little bit into the rest of the Callaways here in Nashville.
I do. I am married and have a son. Love my son. He's my ride or die. We go places, lots of places together. We've been to watch the Titans in London. He had the opportunity to be a part of the band ambassadors of Tennessee and got to do a 16-day European visit trip where he played in different locations. And I got to go follow him in two of the locations, Paris and London and Paris, and just had an amazing time. I think about the privileges that my son has.
Right.
And the way that he gets to do things that I never imagined doing
Exactly.
in my life.
Exactly.
At such a young age.
Exactly.
And the places he's seen and the things he's had the ability to do.
It sounds like he's living a dream already.
He's living
a
right.
dream. Already. Yeah, at a young age.
And for me, I get a little frustrated when he doesn't do that well in school because I think of just how, first and foremost, how incredibly smart he is.
Right.
And how he does not necessarily always use his smartness.
I know a little bit about it. Yeah.
But I also think about, the youth that I see on a regular basis in the court system who don't even have half of, not even a quarter of the opportunities that he has. And I don't want him to waste any of the opportunities that he has. He's smart enough that he can go wherever he wants.
Right.
And he's got supportive family. He just lost his grandparents on my husband's side, but he's still got both his grandparents on my side. He's got aunts on both sides of the family, tons of cousins who love him and care for him and want the best for him. And that's what every child should have.
That's right.
That's exactly what
they
every
need
child
it.
should have.
If
Every
they don't,
child
they
needs
need
that.
it. No doubt.
And so, my work in juvenile court is, I think what I think about him and what he has. And I want to give that hope and that opportunity and that love and structure that he has to every one of the children that we have, that we work with.
That's right.
Every child in Nashville, Tennessee, if not the United States of America, deserves all that he has plus.
That's right.
And so it's my job as a juvenile court judge is to ensure that those barriers, the lack of, whether it's housing, whether it's parental guidance, whether it's structure, whether it's love, whatever people don't have, children don't have, it is my job to make sure that we're giving it to them. Okay. One way or the other.
So, because I'm involved in the court, some shape, form, or fashion, because we had a mentoring program, and that's how we connected. So, what is something that a child who feels lost or feels like they don't have support, how can they reach out and try to get some help? Is there a way that they can do that?
I would hope that in every opportunity a child has to reach out. First and foremost, children are at school the most. And I hope that they would have that opportunity to reach out to a caring adult in their school system who they can confide with and say, I don't have, I need, I'm without. And that our school system would be the first line of defense for our youth. That's right. And so when I became the judge in 2014, that was one of the things that I said we have to do better as a systems as a whole. Not, it shouldn't just be the juvenile court system by itself doing all this work. We got to partner and collaborate with all the agencies that we work with that our children see. And the number one agency that children see, every child sees every day, if they're supposed to every day, is that school system. And the school system has to be able to be that frontline basis for our youth. If we can fix all of the problems with our youth and make sure that they have everything that they need, make sure they're staying engaged in the school system, make sure that they have a loving, supportive family to go home to after they leave school, make sure that they have food to eat every day. If we can get that done through the schools, my work in the juvenile court would probably be nothing. Because once children have that supportive, loving, caring adult in their lives, they're less likely to do risky behaviors and less likely to do things that would bring them into the court system. And so we know that in the schools, that's where it can start to happen. I'll stop.
No. Go ahead. That's why you're here. Okay. So is it still a consistent statistic that most time use of fan is between 3 and 6 p.m.? Is that still consistent or not? It's not.
We haven't done a recent study on that, but I do believe that there was a study that was done out, a nationwide study, basically that said it's literally between 3 and 8 that our youth get in a lot of trouble. And when you think of that, what happens between 3 and 8, that's when school is out, and that's when parents may or may not be home. That's when there's idle time. You should be doing homework or stuff or involved in activities, but a lot of youth are not. And so, especially, unfortunately, as a growing city that we are, and the number of youth that we have in our systems, we don't have nearly enough after-school programming to keep all of our youth busy. Now, like my son has the opportunity to stay busy because his mother recognizes the importance of keeping youth busy. And so he's busy doing band things and other things that keep him active on a regular basis. But a lot of youth don't have that same opportunity.
That's right.
And if they're not connected to a program in school that will provide for them after school, and they don't have a neighborhood community center anymore,
Right.
or they don't have a boys and girls club that might be right around the corner like it used to be, the things that we used to have in our community that would keep youth busy and engaged, we're losing a lot of those programs. And so, I think it's a nationwide problem. It's not just a Nashville, Tennessee problem.
No doubt.
But I'm definitely concerned about our youth here in Nashville. And we've got to, there should be a church, a community center, a boys and girls club open every day, at least from this time school is out, high school's out at 2 o'clock until, it's time to go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock. They should have active, engaged opportunities during that whole time period. And it should be designed, the community centers in the neighborhoods or the churches or whatever it is, that no matter what it is that I want to do, that I'm interested in, that I like, that I'm good at, I can find that close to my home in my community. So if I'm good at art, I'm good at drawing, we should have a program in every community center that has art component to it. If it's I'm good at football and I want to play football 24/7, we should have that ability to have a center in every neighborhood where the youth who are engaged in football can do that. If it's gaming and playing video games, which my child, I think, is going to be an expert at that because I think that's all he does. But if it's, that type of thing, then, have in that center a gaming room so those who know how to do it and want to learn more about gaming have the opportunity to do so. And so all of that, should be in every community center, should be in every neighborhood so that everybody has that opportunity. And, if I had a blank check given to us by somebody, I would do it in our communities that are at most risk of losing our youth. And so you saturate those communities with good quality centers, with good quality people who are wanting to work and mentor with our children and wanting to be a part of their lives, and have them open, I would say, every day of the week, not just 2 to 8 after school, but have them have activities on Saturdays and Sundays as well.
That's right.
And so that there's something for every youth in every community. And I would say that because, out in my neighborhood or where my child is, I have the ability to drive him to places and to drive him to an activity and pick him up and do. In some of our neighborhoods, they don't have that same access. Opportunity. Right. They don't have the access to drive them across town to be a part of a band club. They don't have that opportunity to do that. And so we have to be selective of where we use our blank check and making sure that every child has the same opportunities that all children should have.
Okay, so I want to try a brand new idea. I know you've never heard of this before. How about we start at home? How about we go back there? Because if we could go back home, then we have the grandmother, the grandparents, the mother, the father, the uncle, the cousin. Then we have the elders in the community. We need to go back there first and let that be the roots. And then by the time it gets to you guys, it can kind of leverage it out and it won't be so heavy on you all. So we need to start getting back to that if possible.
Oh, absolutely. And it is super important. It is super important that we go back to the family. And, I get frustrated sometimes when people say, well, the family's doing all they can and blah, blah, blah. You can't always put on the families. I believe that we as a community should support every family. And if some families don't have and can't do, then we should support them in doing that. A lot of things that we do in juvenile court aren't just about the child's behavior. When I talk about the types of cases that we hear in juvenile court, 2/3 of the cases that I hear on a regular basis, 2/3 of the petitions that are filed, 2/3 of all cases that come through the juvenile court system deal with parent involvement. And so if we could fix...
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof.
Okay.
So if we could fix that two behaviors that brought them to the courthouse, negatively affect on their children.
No doubt.
And the children eventually will see all that.
They are a reflection.
Most reflection.
So you can see that mirror.
Absolutely. And so if we could get that mirror fixed and start with the family, then we could change the way that juvenile justice looks. I will say we did a study recently. I had an intern from Lipscomb University that conducted a study of the youth who we ended up having to transfer to the adult system based on the seriousness of the offense. Like murder cases, very serious aggravated robbery cases that ended up getting transferred to the adult system. And my student looked at the records from the past 10 years of youth that were transferred to the adult system. And of those cases that they looked at, 75% of them or more started in our juvenile court system with an adult case. And so if we know that that's where it's happening, and we know that it's adult behavior that makes an influence on what happens to our youth, we've got to be working together to fix the adult part.
That's right.
And so, when I talk about the adult cases that we have, there are two types of cases. We have, we do parentage cases, which deals with deciding the paternity of unmarried parents. So we deal only with the unmarried parents.
All right.
We call it the baby mama drama, colloquially.
All right.
I hate to use that term, but then it always is what it ends up being about, the drama that's associated with two parents who have not quite learned how to co-parent. So, we do paternity testing. We do, we make a decision on who the residential parent, the primary residential parent will be, who the alternate residential parent will be, how much time each parent will spend with the child, who will have to pay child support on behalf of the child, how much they would have to pay, and what should happen if they don't pay child support, and every issue in between.
Right.
I mean, I've had a case where parents filed a petition, the mother filed a petition to tell the father not to cut the child's hair a certain way. And I think about that was true. And I think about the efforts that some of these parents spend on
nonsense,
on issues that if we were co-parenting in a positive way.
Yes.
I don't know if I can say nonsense.
No, I said that, ladies and gentlemen.
But if we could work on teaching parents how to co-parent so that they're not coming to the court system every time a child has a cold.
Right.
The child has a cold in dad's custody, so dad should no longer have parenting time.
Because the father made sure that the child caught the cold on purpose.
And that's the type of cases that we hear.
Right.
And what happens is, there's a study, and you probably, I don't know if your listeners have heard of what adverse childhood experiences are. Basically what happens when a child experiences trauma in any kind of form, it affects the brain development. And there was a study that was done. It literally started off with a doctor who was doing a weight loss clinic. And as part of the weight loss clinic, he was having great success. And these women were coming to him and they were losing weight. Well, it was mostly women. It was mostly white women. And it was mostly middle and upper class people that were coming to him for this weight loss program. And then he was finding out that several of them that were losing weight consistently all of a sudden would hit a wall and something would happen and they would go back off the charts and everything that they gained they would lose. So he started asking questions of those people in his clinic that were regressing. And he sat down with one of them and said, just asking some basic questions, trying to figure out what the link is, what's going on. And he asked one of them, when was your first sexual experience? And she said, 4. And he was kind of taken aback, like, she must not have heard what I said. She must not understand my question. Let me ask it a different way. And so he repeated or asked it differently. So when was the first time you had sex? And she said, when I was 4 years old. And so clearly, he knew something was going on. That was more than just about weight loss.
There you
that
go.
it was more of a psychological
That's
thing
right.
happening.
Yes.
And so he got with another doctor who was doing a similar kind of test. They ended up testing over 17,000 people and asking them a list of questions, which we now call the adverse childhood experiences.
All right.
And it talked about, have you ever been abused, sexually, physically abused? Have your parents been divorced or separated? Have you experienced or have seen domestic violence in your home? Do you have parents that are incarcerated? Do you have parents who suffer mental illnesses? And there's a list of 10 questions that talk about these adverse childhood experiences. And what they have found out is that people who have 4 or more adverse childhood experiences are at a greater rate of health disparities. They're at a greater rate of dying early, getting cancer, getting diabetes, getting overweight, which I have to say I did my own test and I was hoping that I could tie my overweightness with adverse childhood experiences. Unfortunately, I cannot because my score is not high enough. However, but that is one of the sides. And so what they found out that when they were looking at how is this happening, how is this group of people who are getting these high adverse childhood experiences having such horrible long-term health responses. And not only was it health, they were definitely more at risk of risky behavior such as smoking, drug use, drug and alcohol abuse, incarceration. All of those things were raising as your adverse childhood experiences raised. And so what they did was a study of the brain. And what it shows is that when you have a number of traumatic experiences that happen to you when you're in your youth, your actual brain does not develop the same way that someone who doesn't have those traumatic experiences. And so what happens is your brain cells aren't developing. And so because of that, you're not, and the particular part of the brain cell that's most affected is the frontal lobe, which is the decision-making part of your brain. And so if your brain cells are not developing in that frontal lobe part, then you're unable to make the same decisions that someone who has all of their frontal lobe fully developed.
Okay, so now because the parenting techniques have changed over the last 20 or 30 years. So if the child is left unguided with no guardian, to be there for them, then they get off into these adverse activities that put them in these traumatic situations, and then they're growing up to be these dysfunctional adults or troubled adults. And so then it's the mirror is going to perpetuate the cycle. So now what I do, as far as with the Clipperdome Chronicles, when you said that it came from just a weight loss clinic, what we do is we extract research as well. And we found out that a lot of women have been sexually abused.
Yep.
And so now what I try to tell men first, before you touch her body, you need to make sure you get in touch with her mind. So that's a lot of that could be solved by just approaching it from a mental capacity instead of a physical one. So we can kind of try to change this tie. So I'm glad you came on to talk about that because it ties into what I do and I understand.
Absolutely.
That too.
Absolutely.
I understand.
And so that goes back to what I try to tell families, parents who come into the courthouse asking the court or the court system to tell daddy not to cut his hair this way, or tell mama she can't feed him this, or tell daddy he can't do this and he can't do that. That internal conflict that they're having with each other over what you said was nonsense. What I said was over things that I said was just a inability to figure out how to co-parent in a positive way.
Okay.
What they're doing is they're adversely affecting their child, and it's putting them higher on the adverse childhood experiences scale. And the higher they are on that scale,
And they slide down the slope. That's it.
The more problems that they have. And so what we have to do as a community is help these families to recognize that fighting each other all the time over what you call nonsense, or what I call is the inability to cooperate, to have co-parenting effectively. That negatively affects them, their children, and it's going to change the course of their child's life forever. And so if they want their children to be successful, and you hope that everybody who parents a child, that their ultimate goal is that their child has the ability to do more than they ever even dreamed of. You know, when I think of my son traveling Europe for, 3 weeks almost, that's more than I ever could have imagined at his age. And I want him to be able to keep doing stuff like that. I don't want him to have that ability to do that. Every parent should want that for their child. And so when these parents come in court and they're arguing over things like that, it's my goal as the judge to say, this is not going to help your child in the long run to be successful.
When they bring that in front of you about the haircut, how do you offset that? You just by saying what you said, or their emotion?
In that one I said, if you really want me to make a decision on this case, I'm going to do as Solomon did in the Bible. And I'm going to tell you, on this side, cut it halfway. On that side, cut it the way that I wasn't going to cut the baby in half, but I was going to give them half the hair. You have the right side of the hair, and Dad has the left side of the hair. And you all figure that out and see how your child survives with that. Now, I asked them, if you want me to rule on this case, that's how I would rule. Now, do you want me to really rule on that case?
That's fair.
That's fair.
Half and half. Okay.
And how do you think your child's going to feel?
And what was the outcome?
They decided to withdraw that motion.
There you go.
And so we gotta teach parents. This is not something that we need to be talking about in the court system. This is something that we got to do together as a family, because that's what you are. Whether you want to be part of that family or not, you are forever connected because of this child, and you have to do things in support of your child. And so when I talk about the parentage cases, that's really a big, literally the predominant case numbers that I hear are custody cases where parents cannot figure out how to co-parent together.
Is it because we're looking at a situation where it's sometimes more the parent than the child? For a lot of the cases.
Yes. Most of these children are young and under 13.
Yeah.
And not at a point where the court would give them the ability to choose or make a decision. So it's clearly parental things. And we see all kind of things that they're fighting about. What school they should go to, what type of, how they should turn in their homework, whether the father should check it first or the mother should check it first. What type
I have the solution. We need the Clipperdome Chronicles up in there for the parents so that we can guide and direct, coach, and counsel and get them where they need to be.
We definitely need.
I think that's what we need to do. So, yeah, I need to look into that. See
All
if
right.
we can make it happen.
Let's look at that.
Okay, now what is our rate, our recidivism rate? How are we doing in Nashville?
We are doing very well in Nashville with our juvenile crime and the recidivism rate. I think despite of what you might hear in the news, so I think sometimes I look in the news and I get depressed about what's going on with our youth. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's happening with our youth? And then I have to set myself back and then look at what I'm doing in the court system or what the court system is doing for our youth and say, oh, it's really not that bad. So big picture, when you think about the number of youth in our school system, there's about 86,000 in our public school system.
Okay.
Okay? Probably a little more than that now.
Right.
And that doesn't include private schools. So I'm going to give a guess and say we've got about, in Nashville, Davidson County, we probably have about 100,000 youth in our system. In 2018, we had 228 youth who were convicted of a serious crime, such as murder, ag robbery, rape, home break-ins, car thefts, and handgun possessions. So when you think 100,000 and only 228 were actually found.
That's 2%. That's pretty good.
That's less than, that's 0.3.
0.3%.
Well, when I looked at it at 86,000 and the 228, that was 0.3%.
All right.
So if I include all of that.
From.
So I will also say that's a good number.
Absolutely.
That's a huge number,
that's excellent.
and a number that we've got to celebrate. Now, we don't need to celebrate the kids that are doing the serious crime, but we need to celebrate the 86, whatever, 85 something thousand that are doing right. Right. We got to celebrate those youth who are doing it right and making good decisions and doing the things right. And then we need to work with that 200 or so that are not making right decisions. So every Friday, the Metro Police does a ComStat report. And it's a public report. Anybody can go to these meetings. They're held on Friday mornings. I think they start around 8 o'clock at the North Precinct. And it's open to the public. And what they do is they go through weekly their statistics of arrests and convictions and whatever it is that they're looking at. And so we looked at a year-long look at the arrests for youth. And over the last year, from September, the end of September was the last time we looked at it, from September 2019, from September 2018, the amount of juvenile arrests had decreased by 30%. So we have arrested 30% less juveniles than we did this time last year. And that number has consistently dropped. And so we decided to do a full-scale look at the number from October of 2013 all the way up to October of 2019. So from October 2013 to October 2019, juvenile arrests has decreased 49.4%. So we're almost at half. We almost cut the amount of juvenile arrested in half.
Beautiful.
And it is beautiful. It is wonderful. And so youth crime is not going up.
Oh, let's do this. Let's open up the phone lines. So you can reach us at 615. The number is 227-1470. If you have a question for the judge, you've heard some information. If you heard something that you like or heard something that you did like, give us a call. If you need some information, maybe have a question, you want to have some help with a family member. Maybe you want to ask a question. Okay, so now we'll get back to you. I just want to open up those phone lines so they can give us a call.
Okay. So the number has decreased tremendously. Over the last 5 years, we've decreased juvenile arrests by almost half. What we've done, and it hasn't been an effort by juvenile court alone, we've worked with other agencies such as the police department, the school system, a lot of private organizations like Oasis, Gang, Gentlemen and Not Gangsters, Epic Girl. I can name a number of them that we've worked with partnership and said we've got to provide more front end services for our youth instead of waiting until them to get arrested.
Be proactive
and then provide stuff. So we've got to do stuff more on the front end. And so we have a wonderful relationship with the school system. If they have a child that's in school that they think is teetering on some issues, and they may have they may call us and say, we don't know if you have an open case or is there a truancy case or something, but is there something that we can do to hook that child up to services so that they don't go down that road. Under Dr. Joseph's leadership, he made a rule that youth in the elementary schools could not be arrested. They were being arrested in elementary schools, but he made a rule that says that they no longer can.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
I think if you are in elementary school, you are in training.
You are.
How could we have somebody in elementary school getting arrested?
We were having elementary students being arrested, and we still are to some extent. But
I think we have a caller.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're gonna take a call. Okay, caller, go ahead. What's your name and where you calling from?
Yes, hi. My name is Sherry, and I'm calling from the North Nashville area.
Hi, Sherry.
And, hi. I have a teenage son that I've been trying to get help with as far as getting him into programs and everything like that. And he's in middle school, and I'm trying to prevent him from falling into the streets and into trouble. So my question is, I know about the program that they have at Mount Carmel, and I know about the programs they have at his school, but sometimes he's not willing to go. So I just want to know what can I do and what resources can I get as far.
Defenders are, first and foremost, is always a crisis, and then having to go through a system that says you're innocent until proven guilty, but we really know that it operates as you're guilty until you can prove that you're innocent, and working against anything and everything that comes up on you. It was good work. I enjoyed my time at the Public Defender's Office. The Public Defender's Office is not nearly funded like it should be, not nearly supported by people in the communities that it should be. Martisa Johnson is now the public defender and is doing a outstanding job. Don Diener was the public defender before her and also did an outstanding job. I grew up with these people. I know them well and know the hard work that it takes to be a public defender, and I would probably do that. Now that I am a judge, if I were to stop being a judge, I don't know if I would go back to being a public defender.
Let's try to go. Let's say we're not dealing with the court. Just knowing you within yourself, you could be comfortable doing what? What could you see yourself?
I could see myself. It's still kind of court system-ish.
All right.
But I could see myself being a person who worked to change policies on how we treat our juveniles.
All right.
I would want to be the person working with the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention out of Washington, making states follow certain orders that say you cannot lock up kids for these kind of offenses. Right. That you have to do a ACE test on every child that comes into your system prior to determining what should happen to them. I would be that.
So you in your zone, you in your calling. So regardless,
totally
this is where, okay.
I'm in my
What about
zone
some hobbies? What do you like to do? If you could do whatever you wanted when you wanted, you would do...
Sing.
Sing? Really? Okay. You're okay?
Yeah.
All right. Can you break the glass?
I can't break the glass.
Okay.
My son is giving me a look like, you can't sing.
Well, of course, he's supposed to say that. Yeah.
So I'm not the best singer in the world. That's why it's a good thing that God's calling is for me to work with children in some capacity or another. But I absolutely love music and I love singing.
Well, I think, since we have microphones and you sing, you can give us a little something right now. You can they might want to hear something.
First I was afraid. I was petrified. Kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. And I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong. I grew strong. I learned how to get along and...
This. Won't you take it to the barbershop or take it to the hair salon? Take it to the job or take it to the church? And remember, you don't have to like it, believe it, or understand it. Sometimes you just have to respect it. Thank you. This is the Clipperdome Chronicles.